This video will be discussing the influences of Li Huayi, Northern and Southern Song Dynasty, as well as his own inputs into his own work. In the first set of paintings we will look at is Northern Song Dynasty influences. Commonly, when Li Huayi ever has an exhibition, whether or not it's in an art museum or it is in a Sotheby's for selling his art, his work is constantly referred to as Northern Song influences. So, to what extent are these influences there compared to what really is his own work or another influence that may be going under the radar? So in this first set, we'll be comparing Fan Quan's Travelers Among Mountains and Stream and his Li Huayi's Cloudy Peaks at Dawn and Spring. The first thing that I want to point at is the subject. Commonly, the reason that Northern Song is often referenced in his work is because of his ink use as well as his mountainous landscapes. So if looking these side by side, you can see that there is a similarity between to how here it's a huge mountain, tree, very rudimentary surface level comparison. And I would even go so far as to say that the vast array of ink usage, such as very opaque blending, here that juxtaposes with very light of the fabric, or in this case it's paper, which you can see here, as well as like the dark spots versus the light mist, where you can see the silk coming through, as well as the form that is occurring because there is a juxtaposition between the front here, which is darker compared to the light section that is here, which creates a sort of illusion of change, which is occurring here as well. In fact, there is many areas where there's almost like mist choking into the mountain, including an abyss. And also, Li Huayi follows the three depths, which was pushed in the Northern Song. In this case, we see deep, which is we're looking into an abyss, as well as tall. The way that our eye is moving in his painting is kind of making us look up at the last part, and this mountain continues upwards, though its peak, it's being cut off, which kind of diverges with the composition of Fan Quan's work, where we see the peak. Our eye, of course, goes deep within the abyss here to look at the stream, and far, which is we look at the mountain's back of this huge, the one that's standing in the forefront, and also tall, but we see the top. So there's the obvious change in composition. And I would say that it's not the huge difference here that makes Li Huayi's work diverge from Northern Song. There's the whole sort of, you could say, the mood that is generated between these works. And one of the main sort of motivations of creating these landscapes in Northern Song was to compare, as you probably cannot see here due to how small it is, but there's actually travelers. I mean, it's in the title. Travelers walking around these huge mountains. And it's almost very harmonic because of how balanced the piece is. You can split it up essentially into three sections. And also the painting is delicate and it's very, very peaceful. Meanwhile, Li Huayi's is almost violent if in comparison. The mist is like in diagonals, which is usually has more action than the sort of horizontal, which is why it's preferred in composition. However, there's the whole like mist, there's so much mist choking the piece in a beautiful manner, as well as this tree that is more rickety, and it looks like it's barely there, and there's no humans. And to be honest, I can't find a spot where you can sit and look at the view. In fact, it looks more akin to a cliff's edge looking into the abyss. Well, it's more of a white abyss in this case, but it's an abyss nonetheless. So, yes, Li Huayi has taken or studied the ways that they, Northern Song, have generated their pieces. However, he seems to be more concentrating on having these sharp angles and almost barren and sharp-edged pieces that is not meant for harmony, but it's more causes unease. And that's kind of one of the major differences in this case. The Southern Song Dynasty, for instance, is also another comparison you can make of Li Huayi's work. In this case, I have The Landscape Number 8 by Li Huayi and Viewing Plum Blossoms by Moonlight by Ma Yan, a Southern Song Dynasty painter. And just a little bit of context before I go into it, the reason that Northern Song and Southern Song are separate dynasties, especially in their paintings, is because the Northern Song had access to the Taihang mountain range, while the Southern Song lost it due to the invaders who created the Jin dynasty in the north. So this is actually important because this changes the background, the setting of Southern Song, and consequently the pieces are quite different. However, I do believe that in some cases, at least with Li Huayi's work, to avoid talking about Southern Song while comparing his work to Northern Song would be slightly detrimental, especially concerning in this piece in particular, and you will see why within the composition. So one of the first things that I would like to discuss is Ma Yan's composition, which is, you will notice that we have a huge concentration of the setting and the subject here, being the mountains, the people, and the rickety plum blossom tree. And then in the right, it is rather clear. There's nothing more than just the moon there, and that is it. And this is actually one of his signature styles, where he has a tendency to concentrate on concentration on the lower left and free in the upper right. And this style of left heavy and right clear actually went rampant in Southern Song Dynasty. And the reason I bring this up is that in this particular piece, Landscape Number 8, Li Huayi utilizes that as well. You can see a concentration of ink here with very opaque and colored inks in these areas. And here, even though there is some ink covering it, it's very much in the background. It's light, and very much our eye kind of goes like this, as much as it would go like this. So it's moves slightly differently because in Li Huayi's it's more of a curve rather than the line parabola that happens here. However, it's more or less that they're similar enough. I mean, to say that he absolutely took this technique from Southern Song, I cannot say for sure without him stating otherwise, because that is merely a compositional decision. But it is nice to notice that there is a sort of parallel to how Li Huayi plans out his works in some of them, and how similar it is to Southern Song. There's also, of course, a similarity where usually Li Huayi's work is black and white. However, in this case, he used some colored ink in the trees. And of course, and also a little bit in the mountains to represent the trees. And we kind of see this a lot in Southern Song as well. especially here where you see the subtleties like browns and greens and maybe other colors that are just right now are not identifiable because this is such an old piece. But this is kind of where things diverge, because as I said with Northern Song Dynasty, it's interesting to see it parallel in Southern Song versus Li Huayi, is that there's versus humanity versus fantasy. As I mentioned previously, Li Huayi's work is barren of any people or any sign of humans. And according to, and this is he himself has went out and stated that these are landscapes he comes up in his mind. And he rarely, I think there's only one piece out there where there is a single house or part of a house in the piece. But in this case, in all his paintings except that one painting, there's no humanity. It's as if it is humans never existed. This is a snapshot of nature without humanity. And in Southern Song, you can see the people in it. They're right there. They're quite noticeable. In fact, if you compare it with Fan Quan's work, the Fan Quan's like little travelers are so small I could barely see them on this format. But here, they're quite noticeable. In fact, they're looking up into the moon as viewing the plum blossoms by moonlight, as the title says. And this is a sort of continuation of the Northern Song about harmony versus and humanity that live in harmony with nature. And it put a little more emphasis on the sort of nostalgia of the past with the access to the mountains. But it is still huge. This harmony is still huge here. But in Li Huayi's, no, that's not the point. It is a fantasy, first and foremost, because this doesn't exist. You will not find this in any landscape. You can go to the Daihang mountain range, and maybe you will see inspiration, but because these came from his mind, there is no real life equivalent of it. And within it, there's no humans. It's just his mind. So, in conclusion, there are influences of Northern and Southern Song within Li Huayi's work. However, the motivations and the techniques he utilizes in terms of how he frames the work, how he utilizes the past master's work into his, he kind of comes out of his own. He's his own artist, and that is essentially, I mean, that's what it is. He can take inspiration, of course, but Li Huayi is not Northern or Southern Song Dynasty artist. He is of the modern era, and you can see it within his work.